Rift of Nations, episode 4. Here we go. It's spicing up. It's spicing up. They've left the Tech Nation military of the Mech Militia, and they are off into the world now. This is whenever all those plot points can start to really come into play. What's going on? What's happening? All of the different things having to do with all of the big arcs, the big story arcs that I have going on. I can start to think about, I have to, as a dungeon master, I have to think about lycanthropy, getting the werewolf vibe out there of what's going on with that. The rot, this disease plague that's going on, I got to get that out there. The forest is dangerous because lots of things in there. The archdruids from there, the forest nation's about to be wiped out, etc., wiped out from memory, not wiped out literally. It's like Bermuda Triangle in there, right? So those are the main 3 points. Also, I want to sprinkle in the Wanderers, is because they're this like thing that's going around, and I want to sprinkle in the church, right? So that's a lot of different things as myself to sprinkle in, and it might sound like too much to overwhelm players with, because it would be too much to overwhelm players with. And the amount of quests that I'm giving them is kind of, and one of the players mentioned, is like, oh, you know that feeling when your quest log gets a little too full? And yeah, that's kind of, so a lot of the stuff that they have as far as problems, the entry level little low-B problems that they're dealing with are things are missing, things are gone, you know, like cattle's missing as an example of, oh, but that's a lycanthropy thing. Ooh, interesting. People have gone to the forest and been attacked and stuff. Oh, but that's a forest thing with like the beasts of the forest, the trees of the forest acting like that's a forest type thing. But 2 different people have been, and there's a group of people that got attacked and they were helped in some way, and had slashes all over them. So that's a werewolf thing. But it could be, once they see the big picture, I have werewolf things and the things from the forest. They think the things from the forest, they think those things are connected. And in a lot of ways, the werewolves are connected to the forest, so that's true, but I wanted them to start to see that there's more going on here. So basically my tip to you guys is, whenever you're having these types of story arcs, is have similar overlapping things that from an outside looking in, oh, these could be similar, but then whenever they get a little closer, they see that they're actually different. So into the actual story situation now is, let's flip it over to the camera. Here we go. We leveled up. Bang, we leveled up. Let's go. How I do level ups here for this group is a little bit of a homebrew. If you roll below half of what your hit dice is, something bad happens to your character. That doesn't happen immediately. Something bad happens. And then, well, don't worry, we'll get to it. Well, why is something bad happen? If they roll a 1, when you're rolling for hit dice, let's say, let's do a fighter, for example. So we get a D10. So if you roll half of a D10 is, I know 5.5, but let's just say 5. So below 5, which would be 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1, something bad happens. But if you roll a 1 when you're rolling for hit dice, I have you re-roll your dice. Cool, no problem there. I'm not crazy. So they re-roll 1s, and that happened. Somebody re-rolled a 1, nothing bad happened, and you get the next result, and you keep re-rolling once, multiple times. So basically, if you get a 2, 3, 4, something bad's going to happen to your character. You'll see when. But once you overcome that, you get some bonus hit points. Cool. So now no one can complain. Well, what happens if you keep rolling 2s and your character's health's really low? Well, you're going to have some cool, interesting story arcs come your way that you're going to have to overcome. And once you overcome that, you're going to get some health back. And I'm going to have you roll and get some more health. And then you're fine, right? So anyway, I think it's just a cool best of both worlds thing. So I got them the army rewards from the last session. They kind of divvied out the loot. Basically all this is loot. And then the session started. I had them roll for groups. I have a bunch of NPCs. I have a D20 list of 20 different combat ready NPCs. I'm talking, I have an ability that each of them have. I have their health, armor, all that kind of stuff. Super simple. Little index card bullet points worth of stuff. So it wasn't that crazy to do. But I have a D20 list of that, and they all rolled D20s, and whatever numbers they got, that was one team. Because in this whole army situation, it's squads of 4. So there was 20 different NPCs, and they made squads of 4 out of them. There you go, done. And in those squad selection type process, they already knew one of them because it was the thing they squared off against in the trials. The team that Oleander's group that they squared off against, they knew that was the group. But then they all rolled to see kind of where their favorite NPCs ended up with who, which is important here for a second. I made them wake up the next morning and I forced them to give a speech. They had to give a speech to everybody. So that was a cool little role play moment I threw them into the fire with. Then I said, like, all right, this is a little downtime. I started off this with downtime because, again, this was a little window here before shit hits the fan. Oops, sorry. Hey, before stuff hits the fan, that you get to, what are you going to do? What kind of things do you want to do to prepare to go out there, right? So, and I knew there wasn't going to be a lot of downtime close, so I wanted to give them this, and then there'll be plenty of time, and then we'll hit some more downtime, right? So, what do you want to do? What do you guys want to do? Darius wanted to do some stuff with Petra as far as learning some nature things. They did some pairing up across the table with some different stuff that they wanted to do. Cool little moments to kind of Clara, the artificer, learned some new tinkering stuff. She learned some new tinkering stuff because they all leveled up to level 2, right? But I don't like how people just spontaneously learn stuff. That seems dumb. So I told all of them, whatever things you get, whatever things you got at level 2, level yourself up to level 2, whatever things you got at level 2, look at and give me some sort of role play scene when I'm calling for downtime of how you learn those things. So each of them went through and they had this cool little moment of how they got their level 2 stuff. And I'm going to do that again when they hit level 3. How did you get that? I'm going to pair it with a downtime, probably. I don't know. And how did that happen? How did you get those things from level 3? Paint us a picture. Give us a little scene of what you're doing there. It was super cool. And they did a great job with it. They travel to the south now. They leave, right? I had the travel roles set up for Defender, Navigator, Scout, Utility. I have a whole video on travel roles this way. I asked them 2 things. What are your traveling order? How are you marching in? Like, what's your marching order? And second is, what role do you want to have on while traveling? Defender keeps guard of anything. If anything is going to happen, if something happens real quick and you get attacked by something, I'm going to you. You know, you have a chance to help some situation before stuff happens, right? Second is Navigator. You're going to be the one that's leading the where people are going, right? Obvious. Third is the Scout. You're the outlook. You're looking out for all this kind of stuff, right? I'm going to go to you for stuff like that. And then fourth is Utility. You can come up with whatever role you want. Are you really guarding the mule? Are you studying something? Are you whatever, right? Whatever you want to do. And the players will come up with some interesting stuff for this utility role here. So I asked them what they do. They each told me what they're doing. And now I have a general understanding of how they're walking and what order and who's holding the mule and who's carrying the whatever, and what their general disposition is and what roles they've chosen. You can choose multiple. 2 people can be Defender, 2 people can be Scout, whatever, and they can change it whenever they want. But that is their default, and I now know better how to handle travel moving forward. It makes things so much more smooth because something happened and they see something coming. I know to go to the Scout, and I said, "This is what you see." Done, right? So, and it kind of also gives me a little bit of variety here, where I'm going to throw different challenges at different ones of these 3 roles here, or the utility that they come up with, and then done. So anyway, I use my encounter system. I have a video on that that's going to be coming out soon, but by the time this video goes live, it'll be out there. Is a D12 encounter system where they roll a D12, I roll a D12, and if we match, there's an encounter. Cool, right? Simple as that. So the first day they go off, and I had some little church foreshadowing happen. The church travels past them, and there's 3 individuals from the church, and they tried to stop and witness to them, but they were like, "Oh, you already know? Okay, sorry." And they continued on forward. They'll come back here in a second. The first night, I had a little dream sequence of like they each had some dreams going on. I have a whole thing in a side thing over here on dreams, and I have some really cool story nuggets to reveal to them in dreams. So we had a little dream sequence stuff. It was interesting because Q is a Warforged metal person. Very strange in this world. Again, watch the lore video if you want to get the full breakdown of what's going on with that. But he is a Warforged. He's the only Warforged that he knows of. They don't exist in the world. This is not normal, right? He's a Warforged that's disguised his whole rest of his body to look human, except for his left arm. So it's like, oh, you have a weird left arm. No, it's his whole body. Anyway, so he had a dream that he was like bending water and controlling water in some weird way, right? So that's weird and strange. I don't know. I do know, but I'll keep that a secret. And so I just have some little weird clues in these dreams that people are having. That's it. And then first night, cool, done. Second day, Ivar had a vision of something on the wall at the circular pattern with these runes in it. There's a circle, a white light comes from it, and there's runes all around it, it looks so familiar to what he's seen before, but it was all hallucination. Nobody in the rest of the party saw it. It was this whole detour that they went and took off and went down towards, and they're like, "Ivar, there's nothing here." And he's like, oh, okay. So he drew it. He drew the thing so that at least they have that down now. And then he left. And then, so they came across another group. So one of the other groups of the Technation, the one I said, the other people in the NPCs, where I had them roll to put them into the groups. There's 5 different groups, right? There's 5 different groups that were there. And it says 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Oh, sorry. Wow. That's wrong. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 24. Cool. So that was all of the groups that they have. So I had them roll a dice, and then I had them roll a d6, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the 6th one would be I get to choose, and I could choose. But anyway, they rolled a 2, which is Petra's group. And Petra, who's Darius's little love interest situation. So they're here. So in that group, if you're familiar with NPCs, then you've watched the NPC video. That's awesome. Falco, who's this bard guy. Petra, who's Darius's love interest. Karen, who's the snarky bitch girl, who's just very Karen. She's the Karen, right? Like they created this character of the classic Karen. Yeah. So anyway, and then I forget off the top of my head. Oh, hey, check it out. I can check it out right here. Mech Militia. Here's the Mech Militia. Who was the next person? I'm like so committed to this. Vault at Jasper. It's on my other thing that's not in front of me right now. Yep, it's in my DM binder. It's not worth it anymore. But I feel like see it. I'm going for it. Ralph. Maybe, I don't know. I lost it. Anyway, okay. So Jasper, there it is. 100%. Lock it in. Jasper. That's who the person was. There we go. Wow, I'm sorry that y'all had to go down that whole thing with me. I really was determined to get it. Jasper, the deaf ranger with the wolf pet, right? So they met those people, and it's so important why I really went off that rabbit hole. It's really important here who's in this group because of what happens here in a second. So this is the group they meet, which has a free night's watch. They're able to kind of take their rest and all that kind of stuff, and done. Easy night. They got to kind of be at the outpost. This group here, though, the second group that's here of NPCs, they are on scrub duty. They are here just to be an outpost and be a watch, and that's it. That's all they get to do. They're a rank 0, and that's all they get to do. The party is going off to do stuff because they got they got first place in the trials and all this crazy awesome stuff. So they get to go do real stuff, and these people get to not. So they got to kind of see that what could have been, right, if they didn't do so well. So then that made them feel cool, and then they go off, and now this is where they get to choose the branch. They got to choose: do you go to Q's grandmother's house to help her with her memory and all these other types of stuff going on with what's happening and check in on her, see if she's okay? Do you go to the tech outpost to see what's going on with the tech outpost? Why haven't they reported back? I don't know. And then do you go to the Green Haven? Go there and see what's going on with Green Haven. Just where are we going to go, right? Where you got to check in somewhere. So then they chose Green Haven. So they started going off towards Green Haven, right? And then I have this towards Green Haven. I didn't have them roll an encounter for this one. This was just straight up Green Haven, because this is what is happening that way. There was 3 of those church individuals that passed them originally, foreshadowing. 3 of those church individuals huddled over 3 people that were hurt and injured. They were trying to, what's really happening behind the scenes, Dungeon Master timeout. The 3 church individuals had 3 individuals that just were attacked by werewolves. Again, I did not tell the party this whatsoever. And I hope they're not watching this right now. Anyway, so they attacked. The church was with 3 individuals who got attacked by werewolves. They had gashes and wounds all over them. The church was wiping their memory. So they came up and they were wiping their memory that it had happened. So they can't explain it. They can't tell anybody. They can't do anything. No one knows, right? So they were wiping their memory. As they're dying in front of them, the church is wiping their memory, right? People are coming out from behind them. They finish wiping the memory. They get a medicine kit out just in the nick of time to have the players run up on them. I did roll for that to see if they were quick enough at getting rid of the mind wiping stuff, because that could have been a little interesting nugget there. But they rushed up onto the scene and they're like, what's going on? And then I had 3 people. I described them being injured. I was like, oh my gosh. And I set the stage and I was like, what do you guys do? And they're like, right, well, what's going on? And I was like, this one dies. And I killed off one of the 3 of them. They're like, okay, holy crap. And that's kind of the sense of urgency that you want to give, right? I was purposely planning to kill that person to get the ball rolling and like, where are you guys going to go? Who's going to help who? And they paired up, and then Q didn't say something quick enough, which makes sense. He's like, I don't have can't heal. I don't. And so then he didn't get to go to anybody. And then they made their checks to see if they could save them. Darius rolled over a 20, saved one of them, and then the rest of the group rolled underneath the DC, and they lost them. One of the players rolled a 16, but the DC's too high. I really only wanted to have one survive. And if they rolled high enough, they could have had both of them, but they only had one survive. His name's Randapan. He's a Furbolg. So this Furbolg is infected with lycanthropy now. Now, all the wounds and all the things. He is infected with lycanthropy. He doesn't know it yet. He's infected with lycanthropy from the attack and all this other kind of stuff, right? He failed his save. And he doesn't even know it yet, and he's now kind of like freaking out. Darius healed him up, so he's fine. The church is like, we're going to go off into the forest. He can't come with us, so he's kind of like, God be with you, and then they left, right? So then now they had to be like, what do we do with this guy? And they had a conversation about what do we do with this guy, and he kind of talked with them. He's like, my memory is not the best. Oh my God. And then Darius got out those memory crystals that the church gave him. And it was this cool little puzzle moment where he gave them the crystals, and he got the Randapan, this furball guy, put it on his forehead, just like it happened to Darius. Nothing happened. Okay. And this was a moment as a dungeon master. Do I have nothing happen, or do I have something happen? I was like, it's too simple. You can't just put the dream crystal to your forehead and then something happen. No, you got to figure something else out. Make it cooler, right? What's the mechanic? I didn't know what the mechanic was in that exact moment, but I was like, Darius has put the crystal to his own head, and it worked immediately. He had a flashback of something, right? Something super basic on the fly I came up with. Because he's just very reckless and does stuff like that. But this guy, he did and didn't work. So now I'm like, okay, there's something having to do with dream energy from Kalistars, because Kalistars is the race that Darius is, and he's connected to this dream energy, and his body is connected to this energy, which is why the crystal was activated with him touching the crystal, right? So that's where my head's at. He's like, well, I don't know, it's not working. Well, let me see. And so he takes the crystal from Randapan and puts it on his head. Triggers a sequence. I had him roll a charisma save for it, and he rolled high to get him this information. And then I gave him a flashback of his childhood, of him running around in his home as a child. His mom was cooking him dinner because he loves cooking. And this player put cooking in their backstory, right? So once the player put cooking in their backstory, I wrote in cooking into his child backstory of himself as a player, his backstory, or himself as a character, his character's backstory, because he has amnesia, right? I didn't know if this character has amnesia for the first like 15 years, 12, 17 years of his life is amnesia. So I have a huge window to play with there. And he remembered his first memory ever. So that was really cool. He wakes up or whatever, and he's like, okay, it worked on me, but not on you. And so then I was like trying to, and as the NPC, he didn't really have a, like, I don't know, like, do we have to cast a spell or something? And then like, I was like, you know what, let me see. So I rolled a thing for the NPC. I rolled above a 10, which is all I really wanted to kind of give some more clues. And I was like, all right, well, maybe it's like a you thing. Like, is it like, maybe you, like it has to do with you? Like, do you know how, I know you're a dream person, which is what a slang for Kalistar is. He's like, well, yeah, like I could put on your forehead. And he's just said that, he said, I could put on your forehead. And then he changed the subject to something else. I was like, wait, you? I mean, sure. And I like leaned forward and put my head out there, which is giving him the green light to try and do it. And he's like, okay, yeah. And he puts it on there. I was like, as soon as you put it on there, and then he said, oh, and then they figured it out, right? So a little bit of help from the NPC and some other things and kind of prodding and poking and stuff, but tried something new and it worked. And then he had a flashback of what's going on. He was like, we're in the forest. I lost my journal. My journal's in the forest. Because again, they should not go to the forest. I don't want them to go into the forest because they will die. If they go in there, they will die if they go deep into the forest. It's game over for sure. But the, God, it's so game over that I just like completely blanked at what's happening, because it literally would be game over because there's so much stuff in there. So anyway, I don't want them to go in the forest, but I want to bait them into the forest. And this was one of those baits into the forest. He's like, my journal's there in the forest. Like, who doesn't want to read what's inside that journal? You know what I'm saying? I'm not even going to say in this episode what's inside the journal, but he's like, my journal's in there. We were attacked by some sort of creatures. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. They're werewolves, right? All right. So they send him off. They're like, well, what do we do with this guy? So then they send him. This was interesting. I thought they were going to stay with him. And now there's a werewolf in the party with them. And then the next rest they took with him, he was going to turn into a werewolf and attack somebody. And it was going to be a whole thing, right? But they sent this newly infected werewolf. They go, you know what? Actually, the other group, right? The group of NPCs, they're back there at the outpost. We can just send them back there and tell them we sent you. And I was like, oh my God, they're sending a werewolf to a group of really crappy NPCs that are not going to be able to be prepared for a werewolf, especially to attack them in the middle of the night. Uh-oh. So that's now a problem. And I just remembered just now, full moon. I'm going to have that little thing as a little clue there. But what's happening now, I'll tell you guys, is Randapan, the brand new Furball werewolf, is going to go back to that place, be there, go to sleep, wake up, kill somebody. I'm going to roll a d4 and someone's going to die. And that's going to be really interesting. So yeah. Anyway, one of those NPCs is going to die is what I'm saying. And then they'll have to report back. And one of those NPCs is now gone and dead because of this situation. And they have no idea. Maybe they figure out why or what happened or who did it. They probably will for the other three having to fight this werewolf person, or Randapan's gone. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably roll some stuff out to kind of see how that goes, or whatever sounds the coolest. So anyway, that's really interesting. And then they went off to arrive at Greenhaven, and they arrived at Greenhaven. And this is kind of where everything else is. A lot of different branches here. I had the Greenhaven branch, lots of different quests. I have apex creatures that are ready to be fighting them. There's the outpost branch. A lot of different branches here, but this is kind of where the session started to kind of reach towards its end. They got into Greenhaven. They talked to the leader of Greenhaven about like, hey, the outpost isn't checking in anymore. Like the outpost hasn't checked in. Are you guys from the tech outpost? They're like, no. We were sent to check on the outpost and you guys. They're like, we haven't heard back from the outpost. And they're like, oh, interesting. So then they're like, okay, well, what's like, why? And they're like, we're kind of glad we didn't hear from the outpost because we don't even have the supplies that we needed to give them and they had 3 different quests that were going on. And this is kind of what I said about overloading them just a little bit with quests, probably, is they had some quests going on and they chose a branch. I gave them 2 quest branches with multiple options. They chose this one, and then they chose this option, and I gave them a branch, and they have 3 options. So that's probably the maximum amount of quests I would give. That is a lot, but I purposely want to have this sandbox world and really test the limits of a sandbox world, because time out, myself as a dungeon master, I am trying to test myself in a way of expanding a world and seeing where the limits are. How many quests can I give players? How open can it be with it feeling cool? That's what I'm kind of testing out here, because I don't know, and I want to see how far open I can go. I think this is a really good spot, and they feel like they had a lot of choice. It was so cool to see them talk about where we're going to go, and they had legitimate choice, and they understood their choices. They weren't lost and confused. They had everything written clearly. I explained it clearly and walked it out all clearly, and they have it all written, so it's all easy. The 3 quests were some people, the lumberjacks. I didn't call them lumberjacks. I called them choppers. The choppers of the city were going out into the woods to get wood, and then like 8 of them died. Only 1 of them survived and came back. Something's happening in the forest we can't harvest the trees anymore, which is one of their main exports. Second problem is the water source to the town. The water's being cut off. The water's being cut off from the forest, where the forest water kind of comes in to where it meets us. It's being cut off, and the wanderers have like blocked it off and cut it off. Little do they know, spoiler alert, the wanderers are trying to save them. The wanderers know that this water is like toxic, rot, poisoned water, and they're trying to protect the people from blocking this water off, but they are always viewed as negative, and that everyone's always pointing blame instead of thinking the best of people, as the theme of the campaign is right now from all this betrayal shift. Again, check out that main video of the overarching story of the campaign. But so that's the second quest, is a water supply shortage because the wanderers are screwing with the water. And then third is the forest thing. No, actually, you know what? I can go check it right here. Here's the place. This is what's super handy with this whole situation. Greenhaven, there it is. Escort, water supply is low. Cattle, there we go. Cattle on the south part of the city is just getting low. Like the cattle's being taken and eaten and something. I don't know. It's strange. And there's 2 people in the town that know about, and they've fought some sort of creatures and survived. You can talk to them if you want to know more. These are the witchery type monsters. I have my version of them as apex monsters that you can learn about, and if you learn about them, you can fight them, and they can become these really cool things that have lore behind them of tricks of how to fight them. If you don't learn the tricks, they're gonna be very, very deadly. If you do learn the tricks, you probably be okay, or maybe just absolutely stomp the floor with it. But anyway, back to here. So there's the 3 side quests, and they gave them 3 side quests, and I was like, all right. And we're getting close to the end of the session. I knew the time was starting to run out, and I was like, all right, where do you want to stay? Do you want to stay on the farm, or do you want to stay in the this inn that I had ready? And then they chose the inn. Okay, cool. You go to the inn. They gave you a tour of the inn. In the back of the inn, there's this orchard with a yard. There's scarecrows in the back. Oh, I also foreshadowed scarecrows. This is very, very important. I should have said this earlier. When they first walked into the city, or before, on their way to the city, Darius had a nightmare of scarecrows. That's all that happened. And then as they walk into the city, there's scarecrows around from this agriculture place, right? And then it's like, okay, I had a vision of this because we were coming here. Okay, cool, like a dream. And then Ivar, who has hallucinations, saw one of the scarecrows uproot itself off the thing and start charging at him. And he's like, do you see a scarecrow? And they're like, yeah, it's right there. And he's like, ah. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, is it moving? It's running at me. And like, no, it's not. And again, it's another vision. But again, foreshadowing of this scarecrow fight that's about to happen. And then they are in the scarecrow fields behind them, and they go to sleep. They wake up to the middle of the night to the scream, and they run downstairs. And the wife and husband of this owner of this inn, the husband's in the middle of the field with some sort of ritual thing happening to him with the scarecrows. There's scarecrows that are forming a triangle with purple energy swirling around. They're all kind of like looking at each other. And then there's this interesting moment that I came up with on the fly of Ivar. All 3 heads of the scarecrow turn to Ivar and make contact with Ivar, and their heads tilt to the side. And Darius, because I described this happening in Darius's nightmare of like the scarecrow, and like there was face to face with a scarecrow, and its head turned and his head turned. I described the scarecrows look at you dead in the eyes, and they all tilt their heads. And Darius, you feel a tinge in your neck, and your neck kind of pulls down to the side, like whoa, what? And then we ended the session there. And that's where we'll pick up next time on Rift of Nations. So that's the big fight. Now, at the start of the top of the next session, we are throwing down into the first, like, real, true big combat. Like, everything else has been like, oh, the little training boot camps, and they had a 4-on-4 fight, which was a solid fight. But this is going to be first big mechanics with fear mechanics and all this other stuff going on. So this is a little bit longer video. Legitimately, comment below what you think of videos like this. I'm trying to find the balance of, do I just tell a story and shut up about the mechanics and don't give Dungeon Master tips? Or do I give Dungeon Master tips along the way of what I had and learned, and successes, failures, whatever from along the way? This was kind of both of those, right? Because I do want to tell the story of this so you guys can stay along with this whole thing and can watch them in order and watch the whole thing and see what the big picture is. Because that's what the point of this channel is for me, is to try and get you guys in on the behind the scenes of what this is. And I really love what's going to happen. I'm loving. I want to share this story. It was the coolest thing in the world. The last campaign we did, the 2.5-3 year long campaign, and that story that we shared with me and 4 of my best friends. That story I will never forget, and I want to share that with more people. And this is my best way to do it. This is now episode 4 of this whole thing. I guess 5 if you count episode 0 of this whole setup. You can get as behind the scenes as you want and watch all the backstory stuff. And I also had a debate on my mind too about, like, do I give spoilers in these little episodes, or do I like leave that blank and let you guys hear what happens and figure it out for yourselves? I don't know. I've kind of already given some stuff away as far as some of the plot hooks and stuff, but I think it's going to be interesting for you guys to watch, as opposed to watching Critical Role or other episodes where you are in the dark and you don't know along with the players. I think it's going to be really interesting to know from a Dungeon Master's perspective and know those behind the scenes stuff and see what the players are acting, and then have like knowledge of, oh my gosh, like they don't even know. They sent a werewolf to the camp and they're going to get like, oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't even know. So anyway, stay creative, think outside the box. Peace.